rain on the sun, 911 for birds, and a breakthrough treatment for Huntington's. This is 5 science stories for you in 3 minutes or less. No time to waste, let's get started. Huntington's is a neurodegenerative disorder similar to Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, and we don't have a cure for it. But a new viral gene therapy called AMT-130 was able to reduce the progression of Huntington's by about 75% over 3 years. Viruses inject their genetic code into cells to reproduce, but viral therapies hijack that process and use viruses to inject custom genetic code. This treatment makes cells produce microRNA, which is built to disrupt the process of creating Huntington proteins. The fewer Huntington proteins, the less the disease progresses. The treatment requires a long, invasive surgery and is still in clinical trials. Still, this represents an incredibly promising breakthrough for an otherwise devastating and untreatable disease. So birds famously have different calls depending on the species, right? Well, it looks like they also have a common language that spans the globe. Some birds parasitize other birds by laying eggs in other birds' nests. The mother bird then raises the parasite baby as its own, reducing resources available to its own offspring. In response, researchers found that more than 20 different species of birds across 4 continents share a warning call to alert each other of parasitic birds. In other words, these birds are girls' they've got each other's backs. Ancient microbes that have been frozen in permafrost for up to 40,000 years are reawakening near Fairbanks, Alaska. Arctic summers are getting longer, so researchers are thawing out these microbes to try to understand the impact they may have when their permafrost melts. Turns out these microbes can wake up and form active colonies within 6 months of above zero temperatures. The problem is that permafrost is an excellent carbon store until these microbe colonies reawake, because they break down and release the carbon that's been stored in there for centuries. This and other global carbon sinks are turning into carbon sources due to warming temperatures, making it clear that warming begets more warming. Speaking of climate change, generative AI may help rewrite news headlines to be less divisive about climate change. A recent study took climate skeptics and had an open source AI rewrite climate headlines to be less polarizing. For example, this headline was turned into this. Now look, this technique doesn't work magic, but it did significantly increase climate skeptics' engagement with climate-related content. It also subtly shifted their beliefs more in line with the scientific consensus. This just goes to show that proper framing and avoiding buzzwords are incredibly important in really reaching people who might otherwise seem disagreeable. And finally, did you know it rains on the sun? The thing is, we now have a better understanding of why. It's not water, of course, it's plasma that condenses high above the surface and then falls back down towards the sun. But we haven't understood how this rain forms so quickly. Our models up until now have assumed that the iron, helium, and other elements in the sun's corona are evenly distributed, but a new paper challenges that assumption. They modeled the composition of the sun's atmosphere changing over time, which ends up better representing the activity that we actually observe. The models result in patterns that somewhat more closely resemble weather patterns here on Earth, except with insanely hot plasma. You're gonna need more than an umbrella. And that's all for now. You can support me on Patreon and Ko-Fi and subscribe for more.